once that development pulled out, whatever behind the scenes happened. I was busy working and raising my daughter. I have no idea. Didn't go to any meetings. I do know that my water bill went from $75 every 3 months to $75 every month. To me, in my mind, it tripled. Just one household, tripled, boom. Well, it's done nothing but go up just because of natural reasons, inflation. But now I have just 2 people in my home and not 5, and my water bill's almost $100 every month. And I water my flowers and my vegetables, but not my grass too much, because it's just too much. And I hope that when you're making these decisions and you're getting, hopefully good kickbacks for our village to allow another builder to come in. But please make sure that there's some kind of contingency for if in this terrible time to build houses, they're going to do it anyway. I've been to Home Depot. I see how much things cost. I'd love to fix up my house, but when you look at the price of lumber and everything has gone up, how much are they going to have to sell these houses for in order for them to, be able to pay to build them? And that's just it. Just one little person that doesn't want her water bill to, again, triple. Because if it's $300 a month, I'm moving. And I really don't want to, because I went to school here. This was my high school. I raised my daughter in this community. My grandson's now here. I like it here. I know we have to expand and people need to move to the country, and it's great. But we got to be smart about it. And we got to look to make our community nice, not just because a builder wants to pick our nice spot.
Where did you say you lived again?
107 Lake Street.
Lake Street, is that?
It's right here in the village.
It is in the village.
Right,
Okay,
before you cross the tracks and go up to Academy.
okay, just wanted to make that clear. Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else? Come on up.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joanna Barnes. I live at 3393 Harrington Drive. I live in the Mill Point subdivision, actually. We moved here in 2008 with all kinds of plans and dreams, and our neighbor warned us about the water bill when we came in, and we foolishly did not listen and continued and put an offer in on the house and became what we refer to as house poor for a very long time, where we chose to either pay our water or pay our house payment. And I've spoken to Jerry Walker. There's been round and round stuff on Facebook about how the village infrastructure is going to need to be upgraded, that we can expect a 2% raise every single year, regardless, in perpetuity, as it stands right now, and that our village infrastructure will need to be expanded. But there's no plans and there's no budget that's been brought forward to us citizens to let us know what that's going to be. And now we're talking about adding on another huge development. Riverside behind me, the road, the one they built, floods every single time it rains bad because they built it so poorly. We're taking out all of this beautiful walking area for wildlife right by Seven Lakes State Park to put in what? I'm not saying we shouldn't expand, but as it's been already said, let's do it smart. We don't need a bunch of little cookie cutter houses that are stuck in here that nobody wants and are built so poorly that you have to literally rebuild them from the inside out, because that is what we are doing. I'm not exaggerating. I can promise you that with the dreams that you promised on paper, there's no way this is going to work out in this space. I live over there. There's so much water and flooding already because of the wetlands. The amount of drainage that they're going to have to put in, this is going to fall on the citizens. It is going to fall on the citizens. And just like the village of Holly, it'll be talked about how you guys did a dirty deal behind the scenes, whether you were upfront about it or not, because this is not a smart deal for Holly. So I'm very concerned about the increase in the traffic, the garbage, all of those things. But I really wanted to just talk about those specific points because I live there. And I know what it's like from the inside and the outside. And I also know what it's like to be judged for living in that sub because we raise the water bills.
Thank you.
also here to talk about the Riverside sub. My name's Angela Corliss. I am at 3086 Quick Road. The development that they're looking at putting in, it's 171 houses in the first and second phase. With the acreage that they're looking at on doing those houses on, it would be 3 point something acres per house. That area is zoned 1.5 acres per lot. So you're cutting that lot size by so much to shove these houses in, which I'm on a well, so I don't have to worry about the water prices, but yes, so many people do have to worry about that. And, you know, what's it going to do with all of our policing? How much are we gonna have to pay the state in addition to have that policed? What's it going to do to our fire department? What's it going to do to our school system? These are all things that doesn't seem like have been taken into account. And if you guys are looking at rezoning that area, is that gonna be a separate meeting? That's my opinion.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to step forward, public comment?
Hi, I'm Mike Cloutier. I own the building at 3064 Grange Hall Road. It's the Mason Jar Barbecue, and that's what I'm here about, is the mural on the building tonight.
Okay.
Looking back a few weeks ago to the loss of the iconic anchor buildings in Holly, I got to thinking that all of us should be thinking about how to preserve and protect all things that represent our community. And over the last 2 years, the barbecue has really gotten popular, and people are associating it with Holly and referring to it as Holly's Barbecue. It's proven to be popular where people are coming up in front of the mural and taking selfies of it when they're out there buying food, and I didn't see that coming. The artist of the mural, Kevin Burdick, is the same artist that did all of the mural work here in Holly. And he doesn't work cheap, and I hired him specifically because of the work he does, and I wanted to blend in with the vibe that the murals create throughout Holly. And he's a freehand artist, and I don't know if you've seen his work, but he doesn't draw anything out. It's all by his thought, spray can in hand, and he creates buildings with murals on them. And that's what he did for us. He drew a little, the little character before he put it on the wall. He said, this is what it would look like, and we said, fine, go ahead. And he did. When I came back, the verbiage, the Mason Jar Holly's Barbecue was on there. That was his idea to put it in. Okay, I didn't know it at the time, but there it is. And we've had many compliments on it. We feel that his popular artwork is it's appealing, and it's a positive effect on Holly. And we hope that you agree and you decide to leave the mural just as it is and where it is when it was created. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to step forward for public comment at this time? No? Yes, come on up. We like to hear from our residents.
Thank you. Chad DeSantis, 3076 Quick Road, and I would just like to echo some of the statements that Angela had made about the proposed development going up at the corner of Grange Hall and Fish Lake. As she has stated, it was zoned rural residential, which are 1.5 acre lots. And now they're going to stack houses on top of one another. Obviously, this is going to have an impact on everybody in our community, except, you know, not to mention the folks that live right around that property. I've heard of annexing the village water to that community, and I've also heard it was proposed years ago that they wanted to take the surrounding properties, put them on the village water also. Something I did not, that's precisely why I didn't move into the village. Excuse me, just ran up here. So, with that being said though, the rezoning, I guess, is probably our biggest step that I would be against. I mean, obviously, that property was already zoned. What was it? I think it was in '07 is when they did it. Looking at the
I'm not
Holly
sure.
2040 plan. So, refused, or no, it was accepted, but it was for a way different proposal than it is now. 195 houses, 95 acres. It's really packing them in. And that's, I mean, with that being said, I would just like everybody to consider, if this was to be your neighborhood, is this what you would want? I understand money, tax base, it all has a very good sound to it, but at the same time, I can look out my back door and see every star in the sky without the light pollution, without the people going 75 miles an hour down Quick Road because they're bypassing Grange Hall Road, which is just so inundated with traffic anymore. With that being said, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Anybody else now for public comment? You've already spoke once, is it short?
Yes,
All right, I'll just let you do it, just once,
Thank
real
you.
short,
sure.
short.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to let everybody know, when we were debating this was a cluster option. We were trying to preserve as much open space as we could in this development when we made all the site plans. One of the key provisions that we fought for was that we wanted connected bike trails from the village and a connection to Seven Lakes so people could safely get out to Seven Lakes without having to be on roads. And that was one of the number one things. We fought tooth and nail with this developer for everything. And unfortunately, we didn't win everything, but we fought hard to get what we could. And we did so fully knowing that more than likely this development would get annexed by the village. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Anybody else like to step forward? All right, well, I guess that concludes public comment, but I do want to say, the board here, when we look at this development, or we look at this site plan, we do look very closely at what the master plan was when the master plan was last developed in 2018. We will have further discussion farther down on the agenda, so I hope that the residents that have come here tonight and spoke, that you will say and listen to what some of our comments and some of our concerns are, and I know that the developer for Riverside is also here, so we can also ask them some questions also. So with that, I'm going to move on. Next item on the agenda is the public hearing, and this is the public hearing for Rapid Holding Company. The application is for a special land use to place a mural sign, and as the gentleman spoke, it's the Mason Jar Barbecue structure that's located on Grange Hall Road, right up by Fish Lake Road. So for a public hearing, we open the public hearing. Again, this is your forum, this is your time as the public to make a comment. We will close it, and then we will have further discussion on it later and in the agenda. So for the public hearing for Rapid Holdings, I'd like to open the public hearing at,
Want a motion for that? Need a motion like
no, yes.
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to open the
Thank
public
you.
hearing for the Mason Jar proposal.
Derek Burton will support.
Thank you. I have support. And I have a second to open the public hearing at 6:52. 6:54, thank you. That's a lot easier than trying to look at that. Do I have anybody that would like to step forward and make a comment on the public hearing? All right, sir. Would you like to step forward, please?
I'm thrilled that we have a wonderful food venue and some of the best barbecue that we can get in the community. Having alternatives is always a great thing.
Thank you. Do I see a hand up back there?
Joanna Barnes, 3393 Harrington Drive. I don't know if you have to do it every time. I live right there. I walk right past there. I think the mural is a fantastic addition. That part of our community is inundated with roadside garbage, people throwing things out. There's not a lot of great stuff to look at there. And that's one of the things that I was like, oh, isn't that nice? It really does tie the community together. So it's something that is pleasant to look at, and I agree that it's not like it's going to impact anybody in a negative way, I think, to have it there, especially since it already exists and nobody seems to have a problem with it. I didn't even know about it until he came in to speak about it being an issue. I just knew it was there. So living there, I think it's a great thing. So,
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, at this time, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing at 6:55.
So moved, Glenn Mitchell, to close public hearing.
Support?
Derek Burton, support.
I have a motion and support to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Moving forward, we're going to have our minutes. Board, I know you've all received copies of the minutes from June 7th. I just stop and think about that. June, yes, because this is July. I had no changes in the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
All right, thank you. Lloyd Kernan, I have a motion, and I have support for the minutes.
Supported, Glenn Mitchell.
Support from Glenn Mitchell. Is there any other comment or discussion? All right, I'll ask for approval. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Minutes are approved. We have no communication, but on the agenda is old business. And this is for the Riverside Village Conceptual Plan. This is for the Planning Commission review and comments only. We will not be making any final decisions tonight, and I want to make that clear. So with that, I'm going to open this up to hear from our board first, so that then the developer, you are here representing Riverside, then you can come up afterwards. You've heard some of the comments from the residents, and then you can address some of them for us. All right. Well, I guess I could start. We did get the new plans going forward here. And they did reduce the density, because I know that was one of your questions. They reduced the density down by 17 homes in the first section, where, I do have some of my notes here that make it easier. 17, they reduced it down from 145 to 128, 17 homes. That is in the phase 1. The phase 2, there was no changes in that. In the section which is designated for multifamily, they removed one of the apartment buildings and reduced that density then for the number of residents from 224 to 208. There was no changes in the commercial section. And in looking at this plan, because as I said, the zoning right now, of course, is as it showed with the residential zoning for 1.5, the residential, and for the R2 for the phase 2. Under the option that the developer's asking, they're asking for a reduced zoning under a provision in the Planning Commission or in the ordinance for what they call overlay district. Now, that does not mean that they definitely will get this. We're going to work through all of the different aspects and follow as closely as we can to try and come to whether they meet the master plan and the ordinance requirements. When I looked at this, I have had concerns, and as you all stated, some of your concerns with regard to the traffic. There's traffic along Grange Hall Road is not pleasant during busy times. There just is no way. Peak times in the morning, peak times at night. There's been some requests where I've talked to people and, you know, they're concerned about the traffic that goes into Patterson. There is a light there at Patterson School. I know that the bus goes in, it snakes through, and then it has to come out on Riverside. For residents that have approached me from Riverside South, they would actually like to see a light right there at the Riverside. Now, I don't know how that will work, being that there's a light down there now at Patterson, but I do believe this has to be some type of a study. The Road Commission, Oakland County, something to figure out the amount of traffic, because there is a lot of traffic that goes in and out, whether you're turning in or you're turning out. We need to look at that. There's been, in my opinion, consideration I think needs to be taken for Patterson School, for the number of students. Can they handle any more students in there? And we did receive quite a good letter from the fire department. I think there has to be some issues discussed with the fire department. With the last plan that was submitted from the fire department, they did reduce the setbacks on the side of the building. So if any of you saw that, they increased it, well, 2.5 on each side, so it would be 10 feet for each from each property line for 20 feet. I still don't know if that's enough. I guess it's going to have to go back to the fire department for that. I guess I had a concern because in part of it, it said from the building to the lot line, and it also had to include any other structure that came out from the building. So would that be like an overhang? So I guess that's one of my questions. So do you want to go 10 feet from that overhang to the property line or from the building wall itself? I know there's issues with regard to the water flow that will have to be answered. I know myself, I would truly like to see a different layout. When I think about Holly, I think about when somebody comes to visit Holly, what do they come to see? They go downtown Holly. They have the beautiful village down there with the shops and the stores and the small houses, and it's a very quaint area. You can go out farther. Yes, you do have a McDonald's. You have a little shopping center out farther, and we are kind of a bridge between us if you wanted to go even on over to Fenton. But I don't feel the quaintness and the more small town atmosphere with the way that this plan was presented. I definitely would like to see less density, homes maybe with separate garages, be sure that there are plenty of walkways, maybe a different designation as far as, that's an awful lot of apartment buildings to me. I mean, to me, you're driving in and you've got big buildings, so you're looking at large mass and large size, and somehow to me that does not fit into the aesthetics for what I think needs to be in this area. I do have other concerns, but I think at this time, I know the other planning commission members here have things that they would like to ask and to make some comments. So I'm going to turn it over to the board now, and whoever wants to speak and add some to my comments.
I'll start off here. So it looks like we're building 3 sections. There's definitely a multifamily section with the 16 unit buildings. It's kind of built in its own little unit, and then we have single family homes, and then we have a commercial part also. So that different type of architecture builds a barrier. So there'll be an invisible barrier here because these are all going to be buildings. These are going to be single family homes. and then there'll be another barrier probably on the roadside. So in the master plan, there's a lot more clustering. There's a couple pictures in the master plan. I'm sure the developer probably has them where there's 3 or 4 houses, and then there's either a walkway or a greenway, and then 3 or 4 more houses, and then there's a country square with another garden or a park attitude. If you to take some of these other apartment complexes and then actually put them inside of some residential homes, and then we'll have an apartment complex, and then some residential homes, and then some greenway, you sort of mix these together, and that would change the balance of it and make it seem more contiguous or more community-like, walkable, instead of just a decisive barrier. Well, this is definitely the apartment side, this is the family home side, there's a school over there, and that would kind of join this all together and also bring it closer to what we envisioned with the master plan as far as the community feel that we wanted to do. This would be like my comment. And this is a conceptual thing, so we'll have to move on to what the houses actually look like in this, and what the development looks like too. But there's my comment. Mix it together.
Thank you, Commissioner Mike. Anybody else?
Well, I think as a board, we talked about, I think the concern still is the density. It still seems very, very dense for our community, much more than I think most of us would like to see. And I think one of the biggest concerns I've heard when we discuss it is just the traffic issues. What's going to happen on Grange Hall Road, Patterson School's involved with that, Fish Lake Road, Quick Road, all are going to be dealing with a lot of traffic that Grange Hall Road is already dealing with a huge amount of traffic. So it's how we're going to deal with that. What are we going to do to make that so it's safer or as safe as possible, and so it will blend in with the community that we have. The apartments, I think, are a concern for everybody, that just as the density that presents, it doesn't represent probably the finest thing that apartments don't probably bring in the best of people to Holly, although that probably shouldn't be a concern so much. But if you want the nice, more expensive homes, I'm not sure the apartments, the density you have proposed is probably the best thing for that. That's probably one of the comments that we discussed. So.
And I think another good one to note is, this, when you look at it and you kind of visualize everything, as a very conventional subdivision feel. And I think, breaking away from maybe that more conventional approach to where you don't have courts breaking off and different things like that, and maybe making it feel a little more rural and more, country community, maybe necessarily than how it's presented here as well.
And we have concerns about the road. Everybody talks about the road. And I traveled through Mill Point a month ago after our last meeting, and it was in the evening, and the people were home, and there were lots of cars in the driveways. There were cars on the road. It was just very tight. Back when it was built, it looked much better, but now the trees are all mature and very large. And it just doesn't feel like a community. I mean, it's just, you're just packed in. And this is looking like this is going to be a similar kind of situation. And the other question I had was on the gas line easement. Can you tell us? We need to find out more about that. What is that? I think I heard years ago there was a major gas line that went through this area, north-south. I'm guessing that's what that is. But how far setback do you have to be from that? Are you aware of all those requirements so they can be applied appropriately?
Any other comments from the planning commission members?
You guys hit all the points.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
Yeah.
Well, I think at this point, maybe what we need is, could we have the representative from Riverside come up? Maybe you can tell us a little bit when you come to this plan and you've done this plan, and of course you were at the last meeting, you come to this meeting now, so obviously you're listening a little bit to what we maybe would like to have to fit into our community. And I certainly hope you would have driven downtown Holly and driven around so you kind of get the feeling of really what we are here. So,
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Chairman. My name is Jim Epping. I'm with J. Epping Partners and Silverman Development Company, and I'm here tonight also with Steve Pangori from AEW, our civil engineer. So we appreciate the time, certainly appreciate the comments, and take them all very seriously, both from the community, the consultants, and the Planning Commission. We have spent a tremendous amount of time, and will continue to spend tremendous amount of time with your master plan, with your ordinance, with the community, driving it, understanding it, meeting with the neighbors, and we'll continue to do that. Really what we are requesting ultimately, understand that this is a very long process, and we appreciate you coming back, allowing us to come back to this meeting, really just as an informational, trying to continue the conversation, not asking for any action to be taken or anything like that, but just to respond to what we heard last month, and you know, with your indulgence, we'll continue to come back to continue to answer these questions. When we look at communities, and Buzz Silverman and the Silverman Companies were part of the original 2006, 2007 PUD and special land use that was presented there. We did some of the initial designs on that as well. We look at the township's master plan. We look at the zoning ordinance, and those really are calling cards of, hey, as a community, as the former planning commissioner mentioned, these are things that the planning commission and the community did through kind of the public process of developing that master plan. And so we take that very seriously, as well as the comments. And so we say, how do we bring that to life? How do we fulfill some of the promises that were made to the community? And at the same time, how do we do that in such a way that it can be built quickly? Obviously, the economy turned upside down, so the adjacent development and so many throughout the state stalled. And now that neighborhood really is finished off nicely. But our intention is to design something that fits into the community 100%, something that is sellable and at the market rate price, right? So that we can't develop and design things that just cost so much that they're not market driven. And then how do we bring to life the master plan? And so your master plan has a unique overlay district, as the chairman mentioned, this Fish Lake Grange Hall Road district overlay. The existing zoning on our 93 acres is about 2/3 single-family residential and about 1/3 R1 multiple family, with just a little bit of 4 acres of commercial out at Grange Hall Road. And so that's the underlying zoning that this overlay gets placed on top of. So the land onto itself right now could be developed with apartments under that multiple family section, which is that southern section that we're proposing it to be on. And it could have single family homes, a little bit larger per your existing ordinance, larger lots on the single family. So we're true to that, but then what we're doing is we're using your master plan, understanding your master plan, and applying that overlay district that was intended for this Fish Lake Grange Hall Road area. The way I read the master plan, there's 2 different areas that were specifically designed for these overlay districts because they are adjacent to the village, and that the village did make investments in both its sanitary system as well as its water system, that this area really was intended to use, not necessarily to annex, and it's certainly not our intention to ask the village to annex it. This part of the township, and I think should remain part of the township, but it was always intended that this area would be able to use the infrastructure services of the village immediately next door. I think this is going back to the early 2000s in some of your planning. In terms of the homes, both multifamily and single family and commercial that'll be built here, all of those will have tap fees, maintenance fees, ongoing sewer and water fees that would be paid to the village and shared, from a tax point of view with the township. And so it's important to note, and I hear real clearly from the frustration in the owners, that these new homes will go to pay tap fees and infrastructure fees and all that. So to a certain extent, pay back some of that investment that the village made 10, 12 years ago, as well as pay their ongoing share, which will continue to diversify and to spread out those costs. So the tap fees and the construction fees that these homes will build will start to pay back some of that infrastructure for the village. And I'm going through the list, and then I'll go through the plan. But maybe I'll start with the plan. We did, as the chairman pointed out, thank you for your detailed explanation. We did enlarge the lots, and those were in big response to the fire department's concerns, which makes sense, and you know, on a very somber note, is all too real here in Holly Township because of the fire that you had recently. And so we're aware of that, and deliberately made the lots larger. We added 5 foot to lots at the recommendation of the fire chief, going from 50 to 55, and making those side setbacks 10 foot, as you pointed out. So 10 foot and 10 foot, 20 foot between homes, which would allow us to provide greater distance between the buildings and stop some of that, you know, give a little bit more elbow room and make the building safer, which I'm sure that the fire department can speak to more clearly than I can. In terms of additional uses or features that we brought to the site plan, looking at the overlay district and the master plan and some of those images that shows how the homes would be next to parks and everything, is what we did, and I'm going to start using your TV, but we added a number of new parks, and they look real small in the plan, but they're as big as a city block right down in the village, 200 foot by 175 foot, and some a little bit bigger and longer, some a little bit smaller. But what I think your master plan talks about is how do you create what I use the term neighborhoods within a neighborhood. So if I'm a little cluster of homes, do I have an open space that my kids can play in, that there's a shared open space? And so each little hamlet of homes, whether it's the multifamily or the single family, we brought in small park areas. That there could be a playground. We introduced a community garden. Some of these are just big open fields with trees around the edges that kids can play, or you can have a neighborhood picnic or those type of things. But we really think that good communities are built through good community space, and rather than having a big baseball field in the middle or a big soccer field in the middle, as we study neighborhoods and as we plan neighborhoods, it really is those more intimate community spaces where a group of 5 or 10 or 15 homes can all say, hey, that's kind of our little park. The rest of the neighborhood is certainly open to use it, but that's what we identify with, and where our kids feel safe, and where the moms and dads can walk and grandparents can walk and so forth. The other thing that we did to the plan here is we more than doubled the number of sidewalks and paths. We talked about how the original intent was to not only be able to walk through this neighborhood, but walk from the school, walk over to the state park next door, get up and down Grange Hall. And so we've got a series of interconnected sidewalks and paths. And this is, again, a conceptual plan. Those will continue to come to life in those connections, but we think that's very, very important to have those sidewalks and those connections. In terms of the organization of the plan, I wouldn't use the term barrier. In fact, we although I understood what you meant, we very much added additional roads to connect the multifamily to the single family, and the single family and the multifamily up to Riverside and out to Grange Hall and to Fish Lake, and we opened up some additional roads out to Quick. And so we're trying to create a very porous, very drivable, very walkable neighborhood, a neighborhood that doesn't put all the cars into one area, but I think we've got about 7 different entrances that people can come and go from. And it wouldn't only be this new neighborhood, but it'd be the existing neighborhoods that could also take advantage of some of those interconnected. What I always taught my kids as they're driving is, use the grid. Go to the different entrances and exits so that it diversifies traffic. It takes the pressure off the school during those peak hours, as you mentioned. I get very, very much this idea of mixing buildings and mixing single-family homes next to multifamily homes next to commercial. But there are a couple of realities that we just have to kind of play by to make it marketable, to make sure that we can sell the homes at the right price for our communities. I live in Clarkston, very similar in types of the size of homes and the types of market that we're addressing. And the reality is that ultimately builders will buy different components of this and work with us as developers to develop this. And from a bank financing point of view, from a road construction and infrastructure cost point of view, it really does come to how do we create phases that can be built and can be developed that are one to themselves, that the water main creates a loop, that the homes can be built and mortgaged and financed and still create an interconnected community. And so this is what our suggestion is let's build communities that tie together, that aren't interspersed, because it's just very, very difficult to finance that, quite frankly, and that's why you don't see a lot of that, anything that's built really since about the 1940s. It's more phase-oriented, but interconnected. What we don't want to build are those neighborhoods that have phases with a wall between them or a big bank of landscaping. You know, these are, the sidewalks connect. We want everybody to be neighbors. We want kids to be able to walk back and forth and get to school and so forth. So that's a little bit of the theory and kind of what we see is the realities of the market, I'll say, that has the influence on the plan and why it comes to be the way it is. In terms of density, I appreciate the fact that it does look like a lot of homes, and certainly it's a lot more homes than just the open field now. It is less dense than the immediate neighborhood next door, which we think is a great neighborhood. We've had the opportunity to meet a number of the neighbors, and we're at 2.56 units per acre for the single-family portion, and just over 6 acres or 6 units per acre, 6.8 acres per unit for the multifamily, which again is in line with your ordinance and certainly in line with the vision of your master plan in terms of smaller lots, higher density in this Fish Lake Overlay District. I'm kind of jumping around in my notes here to make sure I hit some of the questions. Someone mentioned the gas line. Yes, there is a gas line, essentially runs parallel with Riverside Drive going north and south. It has a 100-foot easement, and that's why you'll see at the top of our plan along Riverside Drive, kind of right through here, and then you'll see then on the existing neighborhoods and adjacent to the school, that's an easement that isn't built on. There's a high-pressure gas line that runs underneath that. Our homes are further still from it. Quite frankly, you know, you could build right next to it. The pipe is just in the middle, but they give a 100-foot easement. But because of the wood lots just to the west of that, we're keeping our homes much further away so that we can maintain the pretty dense wood lot that's there now. In terms of traffic, I'll ask Steve Pangori to step up in just a minute. He's working with the Oakland County Road Commission. Again, your process has us going to a public hearing. Ideally, that we'd love to have that scheduled for next month. No action is taken at the public hearing other than just to hold the public hearing to officially get the comments of the community, even though I'm sure they're welcome at every meeting. And then we go to preliminary site plan, and then we go to final site plan. So, you know, this is probably a 8+ meeting process. And so through that, we'll continue to, with the Road Commission, we are intending, and we'll do it before the public hearing, meet with the school system to begin to answer some of those questions with the capacity of not only Patterson Elementary, but all the schools in Holly. We talked about the water and sewer in the village and really the intent that was meant to use that infrastructure and help pay for it. One thing we talked about a little bit is this nature of the apartments. And what we're finding is there's a new phenomena throughout Michigan, throughout Florida, throughout the whole country of this rental lifestyle. It used to be just, you know, my kids right out of college would rent, and then maybe my mom, when she became a snowbird, would rent, and everybody else would own. And really what has changed, whether it's because people change jobs more often and they, you know, they might move to Nashville, or they might, you know, never sure if I'm only going to be in town for 3 years or 16 years. People use their money differently. People like to buy boats. There's all sorts of different reasons that people aren't buying homes like they used to. And there's a big, big rental market. And that doesn't mean bare bones rental. It means what our intention is really high-end luxury for lease homes. Multifamily homes, multifamily residents, some call them apartments, but they're, you know, fine countertops, modern kitchens, big closets, and so we really anticipate this to be a great addition for Holly Township. Big developments like this, we're working on one in Orient Township right now that's already pre-leased and really showing an awful lot of activity because of the quality, the safety, kind of that continuous management. It just becomes really a great neighborhood, which is another reason we don't want to wall it off and segment it. It's just a different type of home within a diversified community. Last thing I'll say, and then I'll open it up. I know I'm kind of rambling, hitting the different points. The roads are going to be built to county standards. That means a 60-foot wide right-of-way with a 27-foot back of curb. All of them have, as I mentioned, sidewalks and then connecting trails. And so Oakland County really mandates that as a residential road width, where we'll have room for parking at least on one side of the street. Again, those are all county decisions. Again, from the fire department's comments, we did redesign the apartment area or the multifamily area to make it more square, thinking more in terms of snow, getting more green space in there. So appreciate you allowing me to ramble out. We'll be here to answer more questions. Steve go. If Steve wants to come up and talk about the roads, we can do that. But Madam Chairman, I appreciate the time. We're here to answer questions. It would be our request that just from a scheduling point of view, we would certainly appreciate being able to be scheduled for a public hearing, which I think is probably a meeting very similar to this. It just kind of checks that box in your process.
Thank you very much. I think and I know you're anxious to come forward to do a public hearing because you obviously want to move forward with this, and time is money. And this is why, for us, for the Planning Commission to take a look at this, after listening to all of our concerns, you've heard about our concerns on density, the schools, all of this. Obviously, I think you can tell we would like to see a different concept, a different plan. For us, the apartment buildings, there's an awful lot of, they're big, they're large, they don't seem to maybe fit in my opinion, and I think listening to the rest of the board members here, a different idea on the apartments, if we do approve them in there. I like the option of cluster housing in there a little bit more small groups. I'm happy to see the roads, they will be built to Oakland County standards. And for us too, we want to see the reports. We want to hear from the school. We want to know what the road commission says. We want a complete review from the fire department if there's any concerns with them. And we want all that to us, so when we make a decision, when it comes for a public hearing, and we can make a decision as to what we think will fit into this area aesthetically and how we think it'll work. Traffic control, lights, just how it will be right here for Holly. You talk about, what you mentioned a little bit too, you talked about the master plan 2006, 2007. And I realized part of that development, that was all developed back then. But we are looking at the 2018 master plan is when what we're looking at, that and our ordinance requirements. And, I mean, when you think about development, and for everybody here, you have to realize development, if it's done in a good way, is a good thing, because it is the bread and butter of a community. It is what pays for your schools, and it pays for your fire department, and it pays for all of those things. As far as development, as far as building right now, the cost of lumber, to hire somebody, all of that, we don't have control over that, as you have seen over the past few years. But one thing we do have control over, and our planning commission has control over, is how to use the land and how to develop it. So we will be looking very close at all of that. So it might be to the best interest for you to work again more closely with the township office, the planner, the engineer, and see if some other ideas can come out of this that can be presented to us.
I appreciate that, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Does anybody want to add anything? Is there anything that, maybe we'll hear from the road commission, and then if the fire department has anything they would like to add.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Planning Commission members. My name is Steve Pangori. I'm with Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick. We're the civil engineering consultants working with Mr. Epping and Silverman Properties on this project. There was some concerns mentioned about traffic, and I just wanted to let the commission know that we are in the middle of a traffic study. We were able to do counts before the school was out for the season, so we got a pretty good idea of what traffic's like around that area when school is in. We've met with the road commission on a couple of occasions already to discuss our preliminary findings. They did express some concern over an additional traffic signal at Riverside because there's one so close at the elementary school.
That's right.
It's generally too close for another signal according to their standards. But we will be evaluating that. There's a warrant process that you go through in the traffic study to determine whether a signal is even warranted. What we're finding, though, is because of all of the additional access points that we're proposing with this development, the 3 additional access points on Fish Lake Road, the 2 on Quick, that the disbursement of traffic is such that there's not going to be that great of an influence on Riverside and Grange Hall Road with this development. A lot of the traffic is going to end up using Fish Lake Road as a way in and out of the development. So I don't have all the findings yet, but I just wanted the commission to know that we are studying it, and a full traffic report will be submitted in the near future. And then one other just follow-up comment regarding the the fire chief's comments. We also will be submitting a revised plan that shows additional hydrants proposed within the development to meet their concerns over hydrant coverage. And along with the engineering of the project, we also will be doing a hydraulic analysis on the water system to ensure that the flows and the pressures that the fire department is asked for will be designed within the system.
Good.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know you're going to have to also work with the village on the agreement. I believe there'll be agreement on the water use and on the sewer. Make sure that's up to date, that we have all that information.
Absolutely right. Yeah, with the village, they'll be going through this process. They'll have confirmation. We already have had those meetings. Ultimately, whether there be a joint meeting or just some letters directly from the village to the township to confirm that, we'll provide that. And then obviously through the final process, there'll be the development agreements, which is really the contract that Holly Township would have with any developer to ensure that happens no matter what the time period.
Okay. I do have a well,
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I
Go
may.
ahead, yes.
So one of the things I'd like to speak to regarding the traffic that was mentioned that I'm just kind of curious on is whether that takes into account that these are dirt roads we're talking about. So although these are going out to Fish Lake Road, my conception I'm seeing from people, I live down Fish Lake Road and Elliott Road, which happens to then turn to dirt in both directions, and there are a large amount of cars that turn around once they realize it's dirt. Well, the only way to then avoid dirt roads being Quick Road, Elliott Road, Fish Lake once it goes down is then to take Grange Hall Road. So I'm wondering if in that, I understand there's a lot of entrances and exits, however, the willingness to drive dirt roads may not be taken into account of all those entrance and exit points.
I'm not the actual traffic engineer, but I think I can answer that question. Most of the traffic that we're modeling coming from this development are going to be going from the development out to Grange Hall Road where it is paved. We're not anticipating that we'll be adding traffic to the dirt roads unless somebody chooses to do that, but that will be taken into consideration.
Excuse me, Steve, from the development to Fish Lake and then out to the lake?
Out to Grange Hall, yeah.
Well, I do have a concern then that regards the traffic then at Riverside Drive, because you have retail going in at Phase 4. And you also have a drive-through at that phase as well. So that would be my concern, is what retail would be going in there that would also create more traffic right there, because it is retail and not just homes that are pulling in and out of there. And you keep saying that they'll be going out to Fish Lake Road. instead of going in and out of Riverside Drive, but you have retail and a drive-through retail going in there. So there would be more traffic that would be going in and out, not necessarily going through the subdivision, but going in and out. I don't think that they'd revert to going back out on Fish Lake Road. They'd go back out on Riverside to Grange Hall right there.
You're absolutely correct as it relates to the commercial, and we're actually evaluating that and recommending to the developer what types of commercial could be used at that location to minimize that. I think in the future plans, you're not going to see a drive-through a restaurant at that location because of that exact same reason.
Is there any other questions from the board here? Nothing? Well, I think we certainly look forward to seeing what else you bring back to us and what other kind of conceptual plan. I think you've heard all our concerns with traffic, especially density, and what we'd like to see a little bit for Holly. So,
Madam Chair, could I just jump in for a second?
yes.
So, getting back to the original point with regard to the process and submittals and scheduling public hearings and revising comments and getting plans back and all of those things that were sort of thrown out there, I think, well, previous to this meeting right now, the Planning Commission had a work session with us, their planning consultant, to discuss their thoughts, their views, some of the questions and concerns that they had with the plan. And it gave us an opportunity to talk with them about some of our concerns as well with the plan. And I think the consensus was that there needs to be at least one more iteration of conceptual review and modification that hopefully we can accommodate with a meeting between you guys, the planner, and the township staff, that we can take all of their concerns and comments and sit down at a round table and talk about how to get to that next point. But the consensus was a public hearing really would be most beneficial once they have a concept that the Planning Commission is comfortable with moving forward. And I don't think they're at that point just yet. And so that's why I'm thinking another iteration of the concept plan, get a chance to address some of these things, and then look at scheduling a public hearing after that next presentation or next step is really what the Planning Commission is thinking. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think that's the way we all feel, so that we have it in front of us and we have an opportunity.
And that way, the comments that we're receiving from citizens and other folks, they're actually looking at something that the Planning Commission is actually contemplating, as opposed to, well, it could be this, it could be that, we might do this, we might do that, so on and so forth. And it leaves the door open for a whole lot of speculation. So I think once we can get something that's more nailed down and more concrete, that might be helpful. One question that I don't think anybody discussed up here, and I'll just toss out there for a second, is how did you go about in your market analysis to determine that these two housing product types were the highest and best use for this particular development, as opposed to, say, bringing in either like some attached condos or some senior housing or some other types of housing, even single, like ranch-style detached condos or something like that? How did you decide that single-family detached and apartments were like the optimal mix for you guys?
Well, so thank you for the offer of a work session. I think that would be terrific, and I understand in terms of time, you know, that it's important that we make that next iteration before we go forward with public hearings. We'll bring in some of the market studies and some of the findings. Holly Township certainly is a great community and a very strong market, and we see the needs and we have that data that will show that we think that this type of housing, both multi
Yeah, I think and the only reason is there were some questions from other planning commissioners as to why these two specific uses or these two specific housing types and not anything else. Not to say that these are the wrong choice, but some indication from market survey or market data in terms of showing that that's driving the highest and best use for the type of mix of housing that they're proposing for the site.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, agree. Any other comments here? Your fire department, you had nothing else that you wanted to add? Okay.
I just wanted to say that, you know, in the notes that Jim had sent in, he did address our big concern, the distance between buildings. And the 20-foot is, in our opinion, what the minimum is. And you expressed a question on what does that really mean? And we're talking about the closest piece of the building to the lot line. In Riverside
Overhang or
South,
something.
yes, in Riverside South, we ran into an issue where there was some belief that it was the foundation plan, and we ended up with buildings much closer when you start building out the framing for a fireplace and the roof overhangs and all of that. So it's 20 feet to the closest part of any building, so you're 10 foot from either lot line.
Yeah, I saw that. That's why I questioned that,
Yeah.
because I wasn't sure, because you talked about clear space between any part of the home.
Correct.
So that would have to be taken into consideration, not just,
One of the
20
things that
feet.
came to light with the village, the fire in the village, was the trying to protect exposures and the degree of difficulty of that. And one of the things I proposed to Jim, and we're just in preliminary conversations, is the building code does not require the garage wall that lines up with the lot line to be protected with fire-rated drywall. It can just be open studs. And in my mind, it would be a good idea for that expense to be included in the buildings to give that extra protection from an automobile fire in the garage. You know, this isn't, all the garages are right up close to the
They're
lot
close.
line, unlike what you had talked about, a garage in the back that generally have more
or something
space.
separate, right?
The issue with that is it's something that has to be dealt with at the planning commission level. It's not required by the Michigan building codes. You can't say after the fact that this is something
It would
we
be a
want.
condition
Yeah.
that possibly we would require.
And we had made a number of comments on, possibly in the homeowner's agreement that we limit the storage between buildings from what we've seen happen in the other developments. The, my notes here. And then as far as the water goes, Steve had indicated that, they'll do a hydraulic study. Again, those of you that watched the fire in Holly, the water supply is substantial when you're fighting a fire of that type. So what we're looking for is at least 1,000 gallons a minute above the peak daily demand in the residential and 1,700 gallons in the multifamily unit. And they're so close to the village water tower there that attaining those water levels is not going to be an issue at all if the main sizing and looping is appropriate. And that's what they get from the study. And I know I had a number of other issues that I brought up. I'm glad to answer any questions. We talked about escape windows not being on the lot line side, but in the back. And he did reshape the parking in the multifamily area to, as he said, square it up so that you can move snow and so forth. It's still very tight, but they didn't ignore that request. So.
Well, and I know I probably can speak for the rest of the members too as myself, is whatever is proposed for whatever concept we get to in the final decision here, then of course we'll have fire department's final say as to everything that, you know, to
Yeah.
meet all the standards.
And-
And you hope too, of course, building new, you've got newer buildings, updated electricity in the house, you know, so hopefully the concern of a house fire, you know, isn't there as much as, say, in an older building, in an old area. But we still have to be able to get the fire trucks and service equipment and emergency equipment down there when they need to be there.
And the fire department is available, either myself or Matt, if you have any work sessions, so that we can work that out and come to a common understanding
That would be a
instead
good
of
idea to
doing it at a
include them.
public hearing.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Good. Well, I think you have some homework, and we'll have some homework, and hopefully, you know, we'll be able to see where it takes us, where it goes. So I appreciate your coming also, and I hope this answered some of the questions for the residents also. So with that, let's move on to the agenda. Under new business now, we are going to, this is the application for the special land use to place the mural sign on the Mason Jar barbecue structure located, as we said, on Grange Hall Road. And we did have a review from our planner, John Jackson, and I read through. I need to find it. Here. Here it is. It does exceed the normal size, but of course, the planning commission, under the sign ordinance, can take a look at the discretion to permit this mural. I don't have any issues with it, and I do agree with what the planner said in the end, where he had said, if the building use or the ownership changes, then of course, then the mural would have to come down or would have to come back for reapproval for whatever, you know, would have to be in the future. I don't have any other questions with regard. Does the board anybody on the board want to bring anything up?
Okay, so hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the mural sign from Rapid Holding Company LLC for the Mason Jar barbecue structure located at 3064 Grange Hall Road, Holly, Michigan.
I'll support that.
Is that Glenn or Ray?
That was Ray.
Okay. Sometimes you guys sound a little bit light down there. I have a
White
motion
hair.
from Derek Burke and a second from Ray to approve the mural sign at the Mason Barbecue at the 3064 Grange Hall Road in the C2 General Commercial District. Do I have any further discussion on it? All right. Can I take a roll call, please?
Sure. Ray Curtin,
Yes.
Lloyd Kernan. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Glenn Mitchell,
Yes.
Derek Burton,
Yes?
Mike McCanny,
Yes.
Kelly Fletcher,
Yes.
and Pam Masick.
Yes.
Did I say that right?
Yes, thank you. Well, with that, motion carried, it is approved. And I have heard that the barbecue is very good. I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but. So, with that, next is reports. Do we have, Derek, any report?
No.
Okay. Karen, any reports from the clerk's office? All right. I don't have any reports either, but I certainly encourage the residents that were here to please come back for any future meetings with regard to this. I can't tell you how much we truly appreciate your opinion. And some of your ideas have even opened up some more ideas for us about what we need to look at too. So please, come back and be part of this, because this is your community too. So, there's no reports. Any further, how about public comment on anything that's not on the agenda or that we haven't already talked about? Just come on and step right up.
Good evening, Mark Cornwell, 12415 North Holly Road. Actually, I'm just got word about there was a House bill that was being debated about taking away local control of our mining permits and oversight on our mining permits. As a fellow planning commissioner over the years, I have watched so many entities come into our community and roll over us like we're nothing, both public and private. This has got to stop. We should have public control over these things. Years ago, as a planning commissioner, we all reviewed those mining permits annually. I don't know what happened to that. It went away. But we used to review it, and frankly, having 7 people in our community having oversight and being able to pay attention to what's going on out there, that adds to the importance of again, additional minds looking at things and having that oversight. You did have a constituent in to the board back in March that had some issues about the mining. There's probably a lot of things that you may not be aware of that go on those mining situations that if you're not, you should be. Regarding their township hall, has this board had any opportunity to be a part of that process of reviewing the siting of where our future township hall would be, and consider such things as where we might have public maintenance facilities, public works facilities as we grow as a community, and making sure that we're having this facility in the proper location so that those things can be looked at and developed. Have you all had an opportunity to be a part of that process?
No, not that I know of. I certainly haven't, or even members of this board.
No.
But again, of course, that would go back to the township board, to the trustees.
Okay. I'm just hoping that this planning commission will have that opportunity to review that process.
Well, I'm going to say I'm not sure if they need a special land use.
Well, again, it goes back to what's better, to have 7 people reviewing it or 3?
Well, I will tell you this. When a site plan or some type of an application goes into the township office and it goes to the zoning administrator or into the clerk's office there, they do follow all the rules and all the designations and everything that's under the ordinance, under our ordinances. And I know that they also, at that time, if there's any question at all, they do refer back to the legal counsel, to the planner, and to the engineers that are hired by the township. And I do think that they're very up on any rules or laws, and so.
I appreciate what you're saying, Madam Chairman, but once again, is it better to have 10 or 1? Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, you had both got 2 hands up there, so. Are you sure?
Martin Andreski, 2105 Middle Ridge Drive, right here in Holly. In fact, I'm in Riverside North in the development. I guess before I have my comments, one comment I wanted to make from my family, with the deepest appreciation that could come, from our hearts, is to thank the fire department for everything that you guys went through. We can't tell you how much we appreciate what you do for the community and for us as citizens, and for even the buildings. The property is, devastating, but just the lives that you protected. doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you. I did have a few things I wanted to say. I know it looks like a lot of paperwork. I do read a lot, but I condensed it down to be very quick and concise about some additional concerns that I haven't discussed yet last month. And some of them were briefly addressed, today. But living in the Riverside North, living off Middle Ridge, which is 2 houses off from the road they wish to connect to, and I know how tight it is there. Is the concern, especially after the loss in Fenton and the loss in downtown and Holly through fires, about the accessibility, what it means to the property, but more so the human lives and stuff like that. Last time, I heard a figure that just for the last month just hasn't gone away, that where we talked about the reason why the density had to be so big is it was $1,000 per linear foot. Well, and I'll be honest, I really don't care. What is that in human lives? By condensing it down, is it about profit or is it about bettering the community at that point in time? I did read through the master plan several times. Made a lot of notes on it.
Yes, you have a lot of notes.
There is a phrase that comes up 101 times. Now I may have missed it, but it talks about our rule. It talks about the characteristics of it, the community, the township, and so on. 101 times we talk about that, but when we talk about urban, which when I look at the density of the plans that they look at, I don't describe it as anything other than an urban setting, it comes up 12. So out of almost 150 pages, in my eyes, the vision for the Holly Township is definitely leaning considerably one way compared to the other. Up in there, we talk about us being the up north Oakland County. Mm-hmm. It's on the web page. I took it off the web page. It's online when you search Holly Township. It's right there in parentheses, and it's also brought up another 11 times, in the master document. They talk about preserving green space and keeping the density low 67 times in it. So I'm not a developer. I'm not a civil engineer. And I'm not against development or enhancing and growing our community. If the township wouldn't have allowed growth to begin with, then my family that moved here in 19 couldn't have been here. But I think I want what a lot of us do. I want it to be consistent with what we think. I want it to make sense. I want it to be safe. At the end of the day, I never expected that there would never be any development back there. We saw it when we moved in. But I look at what it is, and I have to ask myself, is this Royal Oak or is this Holly Township? And that's really, I'm sorry. And if we talk about people will use Quick Road, well, I applaud you for bringing that up, because we never go out there, my wife or I, we don't use that because we figure we came from a small private community in Lapeer many years ago, and the excess traffic that came down our dirt road, the cost for grading it and adding the calcium chloride to it so that the residents had something decent was something I don't want to burden the people that live back there. It's not fair. I don't have to go back there. But I come off 75, there is no way I would go down Grange Hall and up Fish Lake to come around. And I'm not going to make fun of it or anything like that, but that's just not a realistic thought for anyone that is coming from that side of town. About a year ago, I noticed there were some colored signs out in the property, basically where the high-pressure gas line is, almost across from the driveway of Patterson School. And I noticed it dealt with a potential tax lien sale. And since moving here, I've called Karen at the township many times when I wanted to build my shed, when I wanted to do this, when I've had questions. I know when the phone rings and someone tells her it's Martin, she probably just cringes. But if I have questions, I'm going to call and I'm going to ask. And I remember asking her about it, and she said, yes, it is, but we're working with the longtime owner. And it didn't come to me until in between meetings. Really, it came to me last night while I was trying to comfort my dog with the fireworks going off. And I said, wait a minute. Karen had mentioned to me they had owned this for a long time. It was behind in taxes and everything else, and that's why the notices were going up. And then it dawned on me that it was Silverman Developments that were the ones that told me they were going to be the good stewards to Holly that allowed the back taxes to go. And then worked out a payment plan. I was sitting there thinking to myself, how you know, I don't know if they're paid or current or anything like that. I don't even know how that could be possible that we could consider giving them more leeway if they still owe us money. I know if I owed us money and I probably went in for a building permit, my answer would probably be vastly different. It would, no, pay your bill and we'll talk to you at a later date. And I would have to imagine that that should be the same for everybody at that point. When I read through the master plan, it was strongly encouraged for having side entrance and rear entrance garages and trying to obstruct, you know, the view from one home to the other, so it didn't look like that mass piling of houses. But I didn't see it mentioned anywhere. But I also didn't see in the plan, Silverman's plan, anything about minimum square footage for size. So we know it's condensed, or, you know, they're talking about it being sellable. I noticed that the minimum square footage for a single is 1,000 square foot, and then I think it's 15 or 16 for a two. Is there going to be any type of conditions on what sizes of homes? Do they have to mix them up? Are they going to be exactly the same? Like, you know, when I drive through Mill Point, it's like you have this style or you have that style. And that is, yeah, the master plan talked about no 2 or 3 being the same, you know, together or anything of that nature. And then the only other thing that I would talk about, or, you know, wish to get on the record would be, we talked about the traffic study. I guess my questions would be, you know, when it's done, is there an element that's put into it for the amount of injury and non-injury accidents? Just a couple weeks ago, there was a pile up at Riverside and Grange Hall to where the one car got T-boned and actually shoved it up on the curb on the Riverside south side where the kids wait for like a bus stop if they pick one up there. This is a very high traffic and it's a dangerous area. It's you have to be on your game, and I do agree with bringing all that extra traffic in there without having some type of game plan of what we're going to do. What is the risk to the to the community? It is a very, very difficult intersection during rush hour, and it's very difficult in inclement weather, especially during winter. All right, I promised I'd be short to my wife today. She said, "Don't embarrass yourself anymore." So
I just want to tell you, we take your comments into consideration. This is why we had so many questions ourselves, and our planning commission has had many questions when this has come before us, and we are going to have a lot more, and this is why we're asking them to bring us back a better concept so we can look at something. But I have to tell you, I'm so impressed with what you've done with your master plan. I mean, you've got all the best parts. Maybe we should have. Oh my gosh! Look at that. I mean, now when we do our master, when we do look at our master plan again, you really have to come to the meetings and you have to come and sit down and pull some of this stuff out. You'd be very valuable.
I was impressed with whoever had it.
Thank you. And you had your okay.
Most of what I wanted to say has been addressed. One of the things that I wondered about the traffic is when they're doing the traffic study, are they looking in those subdivisions as well at the impact that is already happening with the school? When those kids are being picked up from Patterson, Riverside is so clogged you can't get through there. So you got to divert already, and that's with just what's there now. That's not including all of these extra kids that could potentially come in there. The traffic back there is a nightmare, and it's scary to walk through. It's not just driving. The other thing, I do a lot of garbage pickup. I do it through the village, and I do it through the township. I'm concerned about the amount of garbage that I'm seeing piling up on the sides of the roads that are in these spaces that are kind of unclaimed, or it's the railroad's purview, or it's that company's purview, but they just have a for sale sign or whatever. And I'm not sure what we do as a community about that. I'm working with the village on trying to figure out something to do in the village, but I feel like it's something that needs to extend into the township, whether we get some kind of litter employees and we pay somebody that is full-time to go and literally just pick up litter on the side of the roads, because we could definitely get enough. You should see what I collect. The other thing that I wanted to address too, Silverman, you know, it's mind-boggling to me that we're dealing with the same builder that we already had this kind of nightmare situation happen with. And I wasn't privy to all of those dealings. But one thing that I have had happen is dealing with Jerry Walker and the village council and talking about how that whole deal happened. What I've heard a lot is that deals were made behind the scenes between Jerry Walker, like not bad deals like they were illegal, but Jerry Walker and Silverman discussed one thing, then it wasn't all transmitted correctly to the village, so the village didn't know exactly what they were signing. How do we know that's not happening again? Because he just came in here and talked about tap fees and construction fees affecting the water and sewage rates, and I talked to Jerry about that, and he said that will not affect our water. It will not bring it down because our jet system does not generate a revenue. So whatever we use, that's what we pay for. There is no money that's being generated from it. So it's not going to bring down the debt that is already there that they helped us incur. So we've got taxes that they owe us, we've got water fees that we're still paying for, and we're going to allow them to develop again in our community. Like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on all of us.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know you guys are trying. Thank you.
Any agreements with regard to that? We'll still have to go back through our planner, through our engineer, through the Holly Township to be reviewed and take into consideration. So I do appreciate your comments. Yes.
Hi, Stacy Ward, 107 Lake Street. I see the signs for saving the NOCFA Fire Department, and I looked up the website, and it really doesn't say a whole lot of information about saving them. As a resident, we need them. We needed them before the big fire uptown. We don't need just the village. We need them guys too. So as a resident, could you guys give us information?
I can assure you, we are not getting
Could
rid
they?
of the Nakfa Fire Department. They are safe. They are safe. They are safe. And it had basically to do with some issues between Rose Township and Holly Township as far as the Nakfa board. But it looks like things are being straightened out, and you don't have to have any concern about the fire department. And again, the gentleman that again thanked the fire department for all you do, I think that was wonderful because you are truly valuable. Is there any other comments? Well, I think we had a very good meeting. There's nothing else on the agenda, so at this time, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:05. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for, I wanted to ask about the last thing we did about whether. I get this one. Come on. I need this in advance.